All right, hello, screenwriters. Welcome back to Five Questions with a Screenwriter. And the screenwriter I have today with me is Paige Elson. Hi, Paige. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I know you're real busy, so I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Question number one: what are three screenplays every new writer should read, in your opinion?
Yeah, three screenplays. I kind of think you should really only read what you're interested in or what you're obsessed with. Like for me, if someone is like, this is the perfect screenplay, you need to read it and then you'll know how to write. If I like, it might be perfect, but if I don't really like it, then it feels like nothing to me. I'm not like, oh, okay, I get it. I get screenwriting now. Like, I understand the structure. I feel like you only really learn when you're like really invested in something. So for me, I like to just read what I'm interested in. I know everyone's like, read The Godfather, read this, read that. And I do love The Godfather. And,
Uh-huh.
maybe everyone should read that. But I think it starts with like what you love most. And I read a lot. I do a lot of TV. I write mostly TV. So I read many more pilots than I do screenplays. But I'm starting to read a lot more screenplays. Actually, I think like Moonlight and Get Out are like incredible screenplays that people should read. But when I was first writing and trying to figure out how to do TV writing, the Insecure pilot, the Broad City pilot, and the Atlanta pilot were like three pilots that I went back to because they were three shows I was obsessed with. I thought they were incredible. And it was really fascinating to me to figure out like how they established these characters and how you like got the world instantly right from the jump. And it's fun also to see what changes. Sometimes online you can find scripts that aren't the shooting scripts. So you see like, oh, like when they filmed it, they actually changed this. Like in the Broad City one, in the original pilot, they're going to like a Nicki Minaj concert, but when they filmed it, they're actually going to a Lil Wayne concert. So it's fun to see like those little differences too.
Good choices. All
Yeah.
right. Question number two. What is something a screenwriter will never learn in a book?
Mm. Um, I think to be a well rounded writer, you should kind of know how everybody's job works. Like, what's it like to actually produce something that you wrote? Um, I'm an actor as well. And I think also what's it like to act something you wrote? Sometimes things look really good on paper, but then when you hear people like saying it out loud, it's like, oh, people don't actually speak that way. Or when you're trying to film something, you're like, maybe this actually has like too much dialogue, it's too clunky, and we can actually get it in a much simpler like look or a this. So I feel like being on a set, like being in production, like seeing stuff, like whether you're shadowing or if you're like filming your own short, etc. I think that like hands-on experience of like making the thing only like further informs your writing and just how to be better every time. So.
Question number three. What is the greatest character arc you've seen in a story?
Ooh, the greatest character arc. Well, I just binged recently The Sopranos, so I'm having a hard time thinking of anything else other than The Sopranos. Have you seen The Sopranos?
You know what? Okay, I'm ashamed to say. I hope please don't shame me in the comments, but I know, I know. Sopranos always come up like whenever you see a list of like top three TV shows of
Yes.
all time.
Yeah.
Sopranos always in there, and The Wire is always in there.
Uh-huh.
So, I have to say, no, I have not seen The Sopranos.
Okay, I won't spoil it for you, but it's an incredible journey. And yeah, that's exactly why I watched it too. I was like, this gets talked about, it's referenced so much, like I need to freaking watch it, do my history. So as far as TV shows go, like that that 6 season journey is incredible. But also, okay, I'm trying to think. Let me think of a movie. Um, The most incredible character arc. I really like the movie Claudine with Diane Carroll and James Earl Jones. I think James Earl Jones has a great character arc. It's about two people coming together. Diane Carroll's character. She's a mom with like six kids, and James Earl Jones's character. He's this single guy. They fall in love, but it's kind of a commentary on like welfare and parenting and everything that was happening with like black folks in the 70s and kind of what was going on. But it's also like it's like this rom-com, like they do it in this very light way. But James Earl Jones's character struggles with providing and being a father. He's a garbage man and he's broke, and we find out he actually has like kids that he doesn't see in another state. And Diane Carroll, none of her children's fathers are involved, so they are looking to him as a dad, and he feels all this pressure of like, well, if I'm a man who can't provide, then how can I be a man and how can I be a father? And so he has this like back and forth struggle, but you see the relationship develop with the kids, with Diane Carroll, and I think it's incredible. I think it's incredibly nuanced, and it makes you laugh, even though the subject matter might sound like, oh, it's really dramatic. But like, I don't know, it's one of my favorite movies. I think it's incredible. So if you haven't seen Claudine, I highly recommend it. I think it's really great.
You know what? I haven't seen Claudine, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to put it on my list and definitely watch it.
Nice,
So thanks
nice.
for the recommendation.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 4. What was the first screenplay you wrote, and what was that writing process like?
Yeah. So I actually haven't written a feature. I've written only pilots. I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to write a feature. But the first pilot I wrote was like sort of inspired by some things in my personal life. And it was really challenging. It feels like you have all these ideas up here. How do you really get it onto the paper? And I didn't go to film school. I was a theater major. I studied acting, and then I started doing like improv and sketch, and I was like heavily in the comedy scene. And so I was like, how do you like really write a pilot? I was very intimidated by structure. It sounded scary to me, and I was like, oh, I don't know. But what I did know was like I felt and could see these scenes, so I knew what I wanted to happen, but I wasn't aware of like by this many pages, this should happen. And like, a pilot should be this many pages in total, da, da, da. And so I would say the first version I did was probably really bad. I did it by myself. Like I didn't take a class. I like kind of read some pilots, watched a bunch, but I just wrote. And then I submitted it to like, um, I forget what it's called, one of those host Coverfly. I think I submitted something on Coverfly to get feedback. And I got okay feedback. It wasn't terrible. I wasn't like super happy with it, but they were really needling those kind of like structure things of like, I should know the like thesis of your thing by this. Like, what is it? And I was like, oh, what? And then I started taking pilot class, and they kind of broke it down and made it much easier to digest. Because we shouldn't be scared of structure. And I ended up tweaking that idea more and more to be like, oh, actually, this idea is better in this environment with these characters, um, and that script has changed many times, but it was a struggle. But I like because I felt like emotionally I knew where these beats wanted to fall, and it was kind of like I had to learn all the sort of structural elements that actually happen with writing that only make the emotional things like better and better. But yeah, so I had to, because I didn't go to writing school or anything like that, I had to learn through classes, which was helpful.
Speaking of classes, we were in a class together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know I read one of your pilots. Was this pilot that you
Yeah,
know?
it is. Yeah, you've
Okay,
read it.
yeah.
So yeah, the first version was a lot different and was more, and I think it was like on a college campus and was much more, there was too much school involved. And I was like, I actually don't want to talk about school. I want to talk about these family relationships. So I moved it away from that a little more. And yeah, lots of tweaking. And then I ended up drastically changing it like last year. But then I was like, I'm gonna set this down for a while, actually, work on some other things. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's all writing is rewriting.
Yep. Writing is rewriting. That is so true. All right. It's the last question right here. Okay. You know what? So I want to clarify. this question over here because the last time I kind of like asked this question, it was a little confusing. So when I say date, I don't mean date in the form like of a like boyfriend, girlfriend. A date, it could be with your brother, with your sister. So in that context, right? So
Hmm.
maybe I may need to rephrase this question a little bit. So I just want to kind of like clarify. Okay, so here's the question:
Hmm.
You get to plan and go on a date with your current main character. What does that date look like?
Oh my gosh. Okay. It's not romantic. I have to remember that.
Yeah, I have to like clarify that.
Okay, if I were planning and going on a date with with him, okay. Um, I'd probably do something like bowling because my main character is broke. I would do
Hey, bowling can get expensive though. You know those pizza? Oh my God, those pizza are so expensive.
Yeah, bowling is actually, you're right, very expensive in LA. Like growing up, bowling was like a $10 activity, but here it turns into like $20 and then you didn't even rent your shoes yet. And then you got to get food. You're right. We would go maybe roller skating outside in the park, um, and bring like sandwiches, and yeah, have a little outdoor day in the neighborhood, but he'd probably be really late. And but the conversation would be fun when he got there.
So a broke outing,
A
right?
broke outing, yeah, so something you could do like for free. So maybe roller skating, but if he doesn't have skates, then we're in trouble because skates can be expensive. And maybe a walk in the park. A walk in the park, eat some food in the park. I'll buy the sandwiches, and then we can eat, conversate, and have just like a chill afternoon is what this would be.
All right. All right. So that was it. So this has been 5 questions with Paige Elson. So Paige, thank you so much. And then I want to
Yeah.
ask you: Are you writing anything at the moment?
Yeah, I'm working on a new pilot with the main character that I didn't really describe, but you kind of heard about just from that
He's
last
broke.
question. This broke main character. Um, yeah, I'm working on a new pilot and some short films. Um, yeah, that I'm trying to make. I mostly write comedy, but I want to tap into some drama and doing a little bit of dramedy kind of drama short films and kind of exploring other avenues. I just watched the film Dry Long So, which is another movie I highly recommend if you're like an indie filmmaker and like into that scene. It's an incredible film from the '90s. And yeah, and that sort of sparked new inspiration for me. So I'm kind of working on some short film stuff too. So yeah.
And then that kind of leads to my next question. Like you mentioned, you just saw a film. So, what recent film or TV show you've watched that you would recommend to our viewers?
Yes, Dry Long So, that I just mentioned, is really great. The Bear, I'm obsessed with. So if you haven't watched The Bear, watch The Bear. It's like controversial in the comedy world because people are like, it's not a comedy. But I'm like, I don't know about you, but I do laugh when I watch it. Like their level of stress and craziness is funny to me, but it gets heavy. It touches on every genre. That's why it's so incredible. But if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend. Season 3 just came out. I'm about to start season 3, or well, I watched the first episode of season 3, but I was waiting for my boyfriend to catch up. So we're about to do our full binge. It's an incredible show, and I just watched 2001 A Space Odyssey, and I got to see it in theaters in 70 millimeter. And that was the first time I saw it. So I got to like take it in for the first time on the big screen, which was incredible. And if you haven't watched it, I think it's important to watch because you see how much influence it had on so many films. And like it's like heavily referenced in pop culture. Like there were lots of different shots and then moments that I realized like, oh, I've seen this like kind of parodied so many times, or I've definitely seen this framing in the way that the style filmed, like you recognize like, oh, Star Wars probably was heavily influenced by this. Like, and so even if it's like something you're not um into, you know, it's kind of like more of an art film. I think it's like an important film to watch for pop culture knowledge.
Wait, first of all, you got to see 2001 in the theaters.
It was incredible. There's this thing called American Cinematheque. If you're not part of it, you don't have to be. Like they have memberships, but also they do screenings open to non-members too. And so they were doing a rescreening of it for, I think, for an anniversary. And so I was like, okay, this is the time to see it. And yeah, me and my boyfriend went. It was really incredible, and it's fun having that like communal theater experience as well, and just seeing it, you know, 70 millimeters, basically like IMAX. So seeing it in that format just felt so grand and incredible. And we actually got to see it. They said it was originally intended to have an overture and an intermission. So we saw it in like the full way it was supposed to be seen, like with this orchestral overture in the beginning, with an intermission in the middle, and then you come back and see the end. And it was so fun. It definitely like was mind boggling. But at the ending, you know, I was like, wait, what was that? What did that mean? And so then you start going down the, you know, Reddit rabbit holes and being like, yeah, what was all this? Oh my gosh. Um, but but it was incredible. And I think because it is so like there's so much silence in that film that is like surprising, and then there's a lot of moments of like intensity and kind of like scariness, that it felt like a more probably a more like visceral experience in the theater versus if I was at home. Like I could see if I watched that at home, I might be like, what? And I don't know, just be a little more disengaged. But because you're in the theater, you're like you're ready and you're just like more engaged with it.
I'm curious. Like, yeah, after I saw it, like you said, I went down to the internet rabbit hole, started asking. So I think recently I saw a good explanation of what the ending was. I'm curious though, when you first saw it before you went into the Reddit rabbit hole, like, what did you think the ending meant?
I really wasn't sure what to make of it. I knew there was like a rebirth of some kind. Okay, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen it, don't and you want to skip this part. But because of the, you know, the giant baby fetus that floats, I was like, okay, rebirth of some kind. And I knew he went like through that monolith thing. So I was like, there's something weird with this monolith. But I did not understand him in that room and then getting older and older and then like being on the bed and then like being reborn as this baby. I was like, what was that? Like, I genuinely don't know. And so my boyfriend had seen it once before and he kind of already did his research diligence. And so we were talking and then watching, you know, some video essays afterwards. And it's about, to me, what made the most sense that it is about this downfall of man and their obsession with technology, or this obsession with wanting more. Like it was only after they came in contact with these monoliths that bad things started happening. So when you have like the Dawn of Man sequence after they come in contact with the monolith, then they start using weapons. And then, and I didn't know actually the transition of the bone flying up into the satellite. That's supposed to be a space weapon. Like that's not a satellite. It's like a nuclear weapon, but that used to originally be in the script. There was supposed to be a narrator, but they ended up cutting it. So it's not quite as obvious, but those are like space weapons in the sky. And then, you know, after they touch the monolith on the moon, that's when they hear that sound that harms them and hurts. And then, you know, Hal is his own form. He like looks like the monolith, and he has this line of like, it's always a human error. You know, like I've never messed up, but you know, if the computers do, it's like always because of human error and like how humans made these things. But so sort of this like downfall of man obsession with technology is like what made the most sense to me.
Before we go, is there anything that you're currently, want to talk to our viewers about? I know recently you mentioned that you have like you teaching like a writing class, right? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, yes. So I'm teaching a sketch writing class. You can go to my Instagram. I'm probably going to post more info about it, or DM me. My Instagram handle is at Paige Elson, PaigeElson. I do a lot of sketch comedy and improv. So if you like going to live shows, you can catch me on Herald Night at UCB with Team Ghost. And then also with my sketch team, Anointed Greens. You can also follow us on Instagram at Anointed Greens. And we have a show coming up August 22nd at the Elysian Theater in LA. So if you want to go, check us out. And yeah, you can follow me on social media for all my little updates about my shows and whatnot.
Paige, I want to thank you so much for joining me today with
Yeah,
5 questions with a screenwriter. This is the second episode, so I really appreciate you coming on board.
of course. Thanks so much for having me. I had so much fun.